All right, guys. Glad to be back again with another sermon. Y'all, I am super, super, super excited about this message. I'm so excited about it. It's been in me for like the past 2 weeks, and I'm glad I didn't try to do it a couple of weeks ago because this past week, things have happened that have just been the icing on the cake that needed to be included in this sermon. So I've been patient. I've just been gathering the little bits of information for my notes for this sermon, and I'm so excited to just give this word. I believe it's going to be such a blessing. I'm just stamped up for this one, y'all. The name of this sermon is going to be called "They Call It Petty, God Calls It Perfect." I'll say this again. The name of the sermon is "They Call It Petty, God Calls It Perfect." What am I talking about? You're about to find out. But there's something that people would call being petty, but if you were to do it and you were only concerned about what God would think about it, God would consider it perfection, not pettiness. Let me lay some groundwork down, and for those that are following along in scripture, I'm going to be in Psalms chapter 37, Matthew chapter 5, and Job 42. Again, Psalms 37, Matthew 5, and Job 42. So, let me go ahead and explain what this is going to be about. This sermon is going to be a challenge. You know, I got my sermons where I'm trying to teach you something, a sermon where I'm trying to just get you to think outside of the box, different themes for different sermons, but this sermon is going to be basically a challenge. I am challenging those who listen to this word. This is a challenge for you. And depending on whether or not you complete this simple challenge, it could possibly determine whether or not a dream is going to come true for you. Now, you may be saying, well, this could be for anybody, but this word really isn't for any and everybody. And as you listen throughout the sermon, you'll know if this could be for you or not. Don't worry, I'll make it plain for you. But the crazy thing about it is, even though what I'm going to ask you to do in this sermon is a simple thing, there will be some who either won't do it or will do it, but they won't do it genuinely. In other words, they'll give lip service, but they won't really mean it in their heart, and that will be the determining factor. This is going to be good. Okay. What is it that could be the thing that God opens doors, opens opportunity for you to do your dream, for you to walk out your dream, the thing that you've been wanting to do for years, maybe even since childhood, that dream adventure, that dream opportunity, that dream job or career that you've always wanted to pursue, but you couldn't, or you felt like you couldn't. What if the door for that is about to open, but all you have to do is a simple thing and do it genuinely, and it could be a determining factor in what God does for you. So, starting in Psalms, that's where we're going to be at. It's going to be chapter 37, verses 4 through 5. And as you're getting there, let me kind of give you some stories. Y'all know I always got to have a story. So sit Indian style and right, get on the floor, sit Indian style. It's story time, right? Okay, here we go. So I've shared this story before in the past sermon, but I really feel like I needed to share it for this sermon. I love telling these stories. So years ago, it was about 2012 or so, and I had started getting serious about being in church and everything, and I was a member of this particular church. And we would have, the Sunday services and the Wednesday night service and da-da-da-da-da. But we would have something that I thought was really, really awesome. It was a Saturday night prayer service. We would come in for an hour. We would all discuss what we wanted to pray about, and the pastor would turn on some worship music, and we would just pray. Some people would pray at the altar. Some people would stay at their seat and pray. Some people would just worship or go back and forth between praying and worshiping. Some would just walk around and pray, and we would all just pray throughout that hour, whatever we wanted to pray about, or whatever we felt impressed to pray on, and it was wonderful. And I remember during some of those Saturday nights, the pastor would wear this St. Louis Cardinals shirt. And he wore it quite a bit, and so I just assumed he must be a big St. Louis Cardinals baseball fan. And one day, he explained why he was such a fan. According to him, he had once had the opportunity to play baseball for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he really wanted to do it. Now, it's been forever since I've heard this story, so there may be some bits and pieces that are slightly off a little bit, but I'm going to try to tell this as perfect as I can, the best of my memory. Remembering correctly, what he said was the first time he had this opportunity, they were going to let him play for them, but he had some kind of an injury. He ended up with an injury. I think it was either a knee or a back injury, but I think a knee injury. But they kind of held him back. So he worked on it. He went to the doctor, did what he had to do, and he was ready to try this again. And they were going to give him another chance because they really wanted him to play for the team. But then something else happened. I think it was like a relative, maybe an uncle or somebody got sick. And it just seemed like every opportunity he had, something would always happen. And what ended up happening was God had revealed to him that he did not want him to pursue this career. He wanted this pastor to focus on getting ready to be a pastor. He wanted him to be a legit pastor. And I know a lot of times, a lot of people stereotype preachers. They think that, all preachers do is they come in Sunday morning or Sunday night, maybe even a Wednesday night, and they preach something for, that hour or so, and then that's really it. They think that after that, they just go home and they just do whatever it is that they want to do. And if they're lucky enough to get paid enough by the church to not have to work a 9-to-5 job, then they don't even work. They just go home and do whatever they want to do whenever they get ready, and go fishing and go here and go out of town and go do this, go do that. That's the stereotype. But realistically, you got a lot of preachers out here working a job, sometimes 2 and 3 jobs, just to not only pay their bills, but to keep the church up and running, because maybe they're not getting enough money in from members of the congregation to be able to pay for everything. I mean, you've got some preachers that are really hauling butt trying to keep everything together because they take their ministry seriously. It's not a cakewalk. It's not easy for everybody. Not everybody has a mega church with thousands of people that always want to come up to the stage during a sermon and throw dollar bills out there because they're loving what you're preaching about, and then they throw the money down there and they just got their hands up. Ooh, yeah, he preaching, honey, as they walk back to the pew. We see that on TV and you just think that's how it is for everybody, but that's not how it is for everybody. You've got some preachers that go out there, they work, and then not only do they preach a sermon, but they spend time with members of their congregation. They spend time counseling people. They spend time one-on-one sitting down talking with people. Sometimes they will raise someone up to be a minister themselves. They spend time with them and see where they're at with their knowledge of the Bible, and they may give them an assignment, and they sit down and they talk with them about what their vision is for ministry. And you know what I mean, they go to events and maybe charities or food drives, or they're active in the community. They're not just out sitting around every day, kick back with the remote in their hand every day. They actually do things. And so this guy that I'm telling you about, he according to him, he had to let go of that dream of being this pro baseball player because God wanted him to focus on being a pastor in this church. And so that's what he did. He obeyed. He did what he was supposed to do. And you could tell when he would talk about it, you could tell he still felt some type of way about it. I mean, he said he did love being a pastor. He loved his job. He loved what he did, but you could still tell that there was that part of him, that still was just like, man. And even in other sermons, he would bring it up. Man, I could be making mega money right now, So you can kind of tell it was something that, it was still something that crossed his mind. Now, this guy I'm telling you about, he had a son, and his son was the assistant, well, maybe not assistant pastor, but he was like the youth pastor of the church. And I remember him telling during the sermon that when he got to a point where he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do when he got out of school, he wanted to be a doctor. And he really wanted to be a doctor, but the Lord told him, no, I just want you to focus on preaching. And he said, well, I can preach and be a doctor, which, yeah, he could have been. But the Lord did not want him to do that. He did not want him to pursue that. And so he let go of that dream and only focused on preaching and, just working a whatever kind of job, With that said, I mentioned myself. When I was a kid, there was a certain thing that was a big dream of mine, and I won't say what it was, but there was something that I wanted to do so bad. I could just see myself doing it when I grew up. I mean, I did it in my mind. I practiced it in my room. I mean, I just knew I could just see myself doing it. I could just see myself doing it. Like it was just me. Like, this is it right here, man. This is right up my alley. And if I were to tell any of you right now what it was, you'd be like, I could see you doing it. I could see you doing it. You look like you should be doing it. But man, I really wanted to do it. And but I knew that even though I had certain gifts that would help me to be able to do that, there was one particular thing that in order for me to do it, I'd have to really be blessed by God to be able to do this other thing that I wasn't so good at, to be able to have that dream career. But I always thought to myself, man, if God would just bless me with this particular ability, I've got all these other gifts and abilities he's given me. This right here, I could do this, man, it would be awesome, blah, blah, blah. But I wanted to do it so bad, and what ended up happening was when I did start getting serious about going to church, and I heard this pastor and this youth pastor talk about these things, I really sat on it for a while, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I was getting to a point where I knew that I was going to be doing stuff ministry-wise. Now, at this point yet, I don't even think I had even made this ministry website yet that I have. I don't know, but I knew I had a calling, and so I thought about it, and I thought, well, maybe I won't ever get to do what it is that I really want to do, because maybe this will be my focus. And what really got me was, as time went by and I would go to different churches and I would listen to preachers and stuff on TV and this, that, and the other, one of the things that I would hear was, basically, I put it to you this way: a lot of preachers, in a way, attack or speak down on the very type of career that is my dream career. And they would talk about how many of the people that are involved in that career, they get so heavily involved in sin, mainly things like, fornication and drugs and alcohol, which is true. And now in this particular career, it's not something that you have to get involved in. It's not something that you have to do, but it just so happens, and it's very well known, that a lot of people, when they get involved in this particular career, if they choose to, they will go down that road because they have so much money coming in and so much access to people that want to throw themselves at them, that and then a lot of people that do this particular career, if they possibly become really famous, which is possible, now they're surrounded by people and they don't know if the people really love them or really care for them, or if they're just trying to use them, just trying to stay close to them for the wrong reason. And so because of this, people, some of the people that do this particular career, sometimes they go through depression. Like I said, they turn to alcohol, drugs. Sometimes they mess around to try to feel some type of fake love. And so again, it's not something that you have to do as part of this career, but a lot of people, when they're not careful, they fall into it. And so a lot of preachers, will just preach against this particular career altogether because of what could happen. And because of how you have so many people, if they're not close to God, they may go out of their way to promote certain things just to continue to get even more money than what they're already getting. So because of all these certain stereotypes and stigmas that surround this particular career choice, and because of how I've heard so many preachers and ministers over the years speak against it, I just had it in my mind, well, this is something that I'm just never going to do. I'll never be able to do this because if my focus is ministry, these two things, they're probably not going to mix. Not that it couldn't, but people would do all they can, to try to stop it from happening. It's just not going to happen, so on and so forth. So that was just the mindset that I had for a long time, that I would never be able to have that. But here lately, something in me has just really been stirring me up. And I really feel like there are many of you out there, and I don't know how many of you that are watching this can relate to what I'm saying, but there are some of you listening who maybe for you've had a similar problem in your life. There was something you really wanted to do. It wasn't necessarily something bad. It could have been something really good, but you felt like you couldn't do it. And maybe a big part of why you could not do it was because you felt like, okay, this is not what the Lord wants me to focus on. God wants me to focus on this over here. So I'm not going to get messed up about my hopes and my dreams and my desires. I only want to pursue what it is that the Lord wants me to do. Maybe I'll get to do it, maybe I never will. But I'm going to do what it is that the Lord wants me to do. I'll surrender. I give myself away so that he can use me. Y'all know how the song goes? I give myself away, right? So you can use me. But anyway, so a lot of us, a lot of people have had that mindset, like, okay, this is what the Lord wants me to do. This is what I feel called to do. This is what I'm going to focus on. So what if I don't get to do this, that, and the other? A, B, and C is out of the picture. I'm only worried about D. D is now A. And I'm here to let some people know, whoever this is for, you've loved God, you have pursued God, you've been faithful, and maybe you've messed up a time or two. Maybe you've had your moments where you weren't so faithful and you probably did something you weren't supposed to do. Who hasn't? I mean, let's just be realistic. We've all had our moments as Christians. But overall, man, you pursued God, you loved God. When you did mess up, you got back on track, and you just put everything else aside and said, I just want to focus on pleasing the Lord. Even though in the back of your mind, you still got that dream, you still have said, no, I'm going to focus on the Lord. This is heartbreaking, but it ain't about my feelings. Y'all know, y'all probably heard a million times preachers and people in ministry say, well, ministry isn't about your feelings. It's not about your emotions. It's about serving the Lord, right? So now you done got that ingrained in you, and so now you be hurting and don't tell nobody because nobody's supposed to care about your feelings in ministry, right? So, which is probably a big part of the reason why you got so many people that drop out of ministry, or so many people in ministry that are severely depressed, even those that are famous and have mega churches and are on TV and have money. That's the reason why you have a pretty significant suicide rate when it comes to pastors and preachers in ministry, and people just dropping out altogether, even though they know that's their calling. Depressed and sad and beat down because no one can hear them out. They got to listen to everybody else's problems, but nobody can really hear them out without judging them or tearing them down about what they feel and what they're going through. Come on, it's true. But anyway, so Psalms 37. Maybe this message is for you. If you can relate to what I've said so far, maybe this is for you. Psalm 37. Verses 4 and 5 says this: Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Yes, the Lord does care about the desires of your heart. Now, of course, he's got to test it, because some desires that we have are not good, and some desires, we desire things for the wrong reasons. That's another factor as to why sometimes we don't get what we really want. And sometimes it's not a no from God, sometimes it's simply a not yet. But there are different factors as to why certain things that you really want, that you feel like only God can make a way for, there are certain factors as to why it doesn't happen, or doesn't happen when or how you want it. Sometimes it's about growing up and maturing so that you can have it then. Sometimes it's about appreciating the little so that you can appreciate that big thing when you get it. But delight thyself in the Lord. You got to commit your way unto him. Trust also in him. So whoever this is for, this has been you. This has been you. As I've said, you've been loving on God. You've been seeking him. This has been you. Okay? So he does care, even though people are going to let you know in ministry they're not going to care how you feel. God, he considers how you feel. He's listening to your prayers. Matthew 5, starting at verse 43, this is what Jesus says. Now listen to this. Ye have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies. This is where the challenge is fixing to get ready to come in. Hold on now. Bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if ye love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. So what's being said here is this. Basically what Jesus is saying is, look, it's easy to be nice to people that are nice to you. It's easy to care about the people that care about you. You know, it's easy to be there and pray for people and love on people when you know them, when they're your neighbor, when they're your relative. You can do these things, but what really says something about you, what really says something about your character, is when you can be good to those who are not so good to you. When you can be good to those who could be an enemy of yours. Whether it be somebody you're not always necessarily too crazy about, or whether it's somebody who does not like you, or who hates you, who despises you, who thinks little of you, who thinks you should not be blessed, who wants what you got. He's saying when you can do that to them, when you can be good to them, when you can pray for them and not curse them, that's what I'm looking at. That's big. That says something about you. And in that last verse, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. So if you can pray for your enemies, not against them, not curse them, but really pray for them, the way you do for your loved ones, the way you do for your friends and the people you want to see good things happen to, when you can do this for your enemies, there's perfection in that. And this is what I mean, and this is where the title of this sermon comes in. You see, a lot of times we talk about how, or you see people talk about how when they're out in public somewhere and they see somebody that they know does not like them, they'll be nice to them. They'll smile, they'll say hello, and just keep on walking. They won't be rude about it. Even though that person knows that that other person doesn't like them, they'll still be courteous to them. And people will say, well, you know, that's just being petty. Right? You're just being petty. You know they don't like you, so why are you going to be nice? You know they don't like you, why are you going to smile? You know they don't like you, so why would you say hello? You know they don't like you, so why would you even give such a kind gesture. You're just being petty. And then your response may be, no, I'm just being mature. I'm handling this maturely. They may be immature. The way they act towards me may be immature, but I'm going to be mature and not stoop to their level, right? Exactly. They call it petty, but God calls it perfect. That's what he says. When you do these things, you're being perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. And when he says perfect, he doesn't necessarily mean perfect by our standards. Our standards is we always got it together. We ain't messing up. We ain't ever doing nothing wrong. We've never sinned. That's not what he's saying. He's saying perfect in the context of your maturity level. Can you be perfect or mature enough? Come on. Can you be mature enough to bless those that may want to curse you? To wish good for those that wish evil or wish bad or want to reward your good for evil? Can you pray for those who would never think to pray for you? And can you do it genuinely? Not just say, oh, I'm going to pray for you, girl. Because, we say that when people get on our nerves. I'm going to have to pray for that girl. I'm going to pray for you. Or we might say it jokingly, But have you ever really did it and meant it when you did it? Not that angry, she gets on my nerves, but okay, God, I'm going to pray. Da, 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 da. No, and usually when we say praying for somebody, we mean things like, praying that the Lord opens their eyes to what they're doing, praying that they, that they're not, always suffering certain consequences. In other words, we pray that God may have mercy on them instead of seeking vengeance. And those are all good things. But in this sermon, I'm taking it to the next level. In this sermon, the challenge is not only can you pray good and not only they stop for their own good and all this and that. Can you pray, listen to this, can you pray that the desires of your enemies' hearts come true? Can you pray that their dream comes true? Even if yours doesn't. Even if their dream is bigger than your dream. Even if their dream can overshadow yours if both of y'all's dreams come true. You got a lot of people who they'll cheer on people from other states, maybe even other towns, but if somebody from their own hometown gets their dream to come true first, they don't like that because they wanted to be the one that gets to rep their hometown first. And, they act like the town ain't big enough for the two of them to represent it. So, come on. Seriously. You perfect example. Rappers, people that are aspiring rappers. I see it all the time. They'll share some other up and coming rappers new music video or new mixtape or whatever. They'll post it on social media. Check out this dude, check him out. But let it be somebody from their own hometown that ain't even thinking about them, and all of a sudden they view them as competition when everybody is just trying to get to the same goal. It's not like only one person from a town can be the next rap star, but they don't want that person to be first. So they're not going to promote them. They may slander them, talk bad about them, sit there and listen to their music, copy it, see what programs they use to make their beats with, and do it. And if they can't do it, they'll find somebody else, somebody to produce their stuff, but copy somebody else's sound because they want to get to the finish line first. Never mind. Some of y'all right now probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You know some people right now, they can't support anybody else in their own hometown. They refuse. It could be somebody's best friend. Nope. They'll do everything not to support them. They would rather it be somebody they don't know than somebody that's been good to them their whole life just because they can't be first. Anyway. But that's the challenge for you. Think about those who have done you wrong in your life. Think about those who hate you. Think about those who slander you and gossip about you. Think about those who did you so wrong and refuse to apologize, but continue to make you seem like the bad guy to other people. What are their dreams? What are their goals? What are their hopes, their desires? If you know it, pray it for them. Whatever it is that you know that they really wanted to do, pray that for them, but genuinely pray it. Don't just give God lip service and say, well, okay, Lord, this is what I want, so I'm going to pray for this person. I hope they get blah, 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 whatever. No. The same way you opened your heart up and poured your heart out to God and said, Lord, I want this so bad. Why can't you genuinely pray for those people that you might not be too crazy about? Why can't you pray that same way for them? Because see, that'll say something. That'll say something about your maturity level. That may be petty to other people, but God calls it perfect. Here, let me even put it to you this way. We've heard of what they call paying it forward. Paying it forward, here's an example, and we've seen this in the news quite a bit over the years. You'll hear about somebody going into a restaurant. They'll pay for their stuff, but then they'll pick somebody else out, somebody that doesn't even know them. And they'll say, hey, they'll tell the person at the register, hey, I'm going to pay for their food. I'm going to pay for that person or the people at that table. I'm going to pay for their stuff. But the person that's making that decision to pay for those people's food, they don't go and tell them, hey, I'm going to pay for your stuff. They just do it, and then when they do it, they leave, right? So when that person or those people get up from that table and they go to pay for their stuff, what happens? The person at the register says, oh, well, somebody just paid for your stuff for you. And now you got a mystery person, right? But it's okay because they weren't doing it to get hand claps. They did it from their heart. It was okay that you didn't know who they were. Come on. They called it paying it forward. And so what happens, and the reason why this has shown up in the news over the years, is what happens sometimes is a person will pay for somebody else's stuff. And then when that person comes up and they get ready to pay and they're told, hey, your food has been paid for, then they will pay for somebody else's stuff. Then when those people come from their table and find out their stuff has been paid for, then they pay for some, and it's just a chain reaction. And it can go on for hours, even on to the end of the day. And this is when it happens the most. It's not inside of a restaurant, but in the drive-through of fast food places. This is something where it happens. Somebody buys a meal or maybe a drink or just a coffee from a Starbucks or something. They get their stuff, they pay for somebody else. Then that person pulls up, hey, your stuff has been paid for. Hey, I'm going to pay for that person's stuff behind me. How much was their coffee? How much was their drink? How much was their soda? How much was their burger? And then it keeps going and going, and it can go for hours. I remember one time in the news, I don't remember where it was or the restaurant, but they said it was like 30-something people. 30-something people total that had kept paying for other people's stuff. It was just a chain reaction until somebody came up that didn't want to pay for somebody else's stuff, and they just got their stuff for free and moved on, and then it kind of broke the chain. But still, that's really cool. That is really cool. Paying it forward. And so you're helping somebody that not only do you not really even know that well, but somebody who may not have even done anything for you in the past. It could have been somebody that even hurt you in the past. So that's paying it forward. Now, giving back is when you help somebody that just helped you already. That's giving back, but paying it forward is to give to someone who has not helped you or who has not had the opportunity to help you yet. So there's a difference between paying someone back and paying it forward. And so what I'm saying to you in this sermon is you should pray it forward. Not just pay it forward. No, pray it forward. Pray for somebody else for what you could be having. Pray it forward. Those enemies, they may not have helped you. You're probably thinking, well, why can't I pray for someone who has? That's giving back. I'm saying pray it forward. See, that's the challenge, is to do that, but genuinely do it. Think about those people that really hurt you. Have you forgiven them? Pray it forward. Genuinely pray it forward. Pray that they get what they wanted. Pray that they get that record deal. Pray that they get to play for that sports team. Pray that they get to open their own business. Come on. Pray that they get that book deal. Pray that they get to move across the country. Pray that they get to move to a whole other country. Come on. Pray that they win the $1 million. Pray that they get the new home. Pray that they get the new car. Whether it's a car nicer than what you want, or even if it's the same car you want and it's limited edition, and that's just one more person making it hard for you to get it. So what? Pray it forward. Pray it forward. Pray it forward. Again, there will be some people, they won't do it, or they'll only do it for certain enemies, certain people they don't like, but they'll ignore all these other people that they know crossed their mind when they were thinking about this sermon. They know they should be praying for that person, but they'll ignore that person, just this person that didn't hurt them that bad, or the one that actually did come back and apologize. Come on. Or they'll pray for all these people but not really mean it. Just trying to get what they want, but they could really care less if these people get anything. Can you genuinely pray it forward? And this is a legit thing right here. Don't believe me? Job chapter 42, verse 10. If you know the story of Job, you know at the beginning of Job had a lot. Married with plenty of offspring and plenty of cattle and a home and wealth. He had it going on. He began to lose everything, losing family members, losing cattle, losing a lot of things, health deteriorating before his eyes, sores and boils on him. Life is not looking so great for him all of a sudden. And his friends try to come and give him some advice, and nothing really seems to be working out. But the Lord steps in and talks to Job and addresses some things. And then here in 42 verse 10 it says, "And the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Also the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before." God gave him double for his trouble. Verse 11, "Then it came there unto him all his brethren and all his sisters and all they that had been of his acquaintance before, and did eat bread with him in his house, and they bemoaned him and comforted him over all the evil that the Lord had brought upon him. And every man also gave him a piece of money, and every one an earring of gold. So the Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning." Even though he lost it all, he ended up with way more than what he started with at the very beginning of the story, before he lost everything. God blessed him. But the moment God did it was when he was praying for somebody else. Now, I do know that it says his friends, not his enemies. But I'm using this to show you that praying it forward does help, it does matter. But I'm also emphasizing the fact that you're again praying it forward, not giving back, but paying or praying it forward, because I want you to see that it's not always about praying for somebody that has helped you, but also those that won't or simply can't help you. And we see that his friends tried to help, but nothing really came of it when they tried to give him advice. But even though they couldn't solve the problem for Job, he still prayed for them. Even though they said some things to him that rubbed him the wrong way and could have made Job mad at them, come on, he still prayed for them, even though he was the one really going through something. They weren't going through what he was going through, but he prayed it forward. And look at what happened to him. Praying it forward. Praying it forward. I want to share some things real quick, and I'll wrap this up. Something that comes to mind is a few weeks ago on Facebook, I saw this meme, and it said something along the lines of, Um, what if you could have $10,000 if it meant your enemy got 100,000? And basically, it's just a way of expressing the fact that there are people who they want to be blessed, but if their enemy is blessed and maybe blessed with more than them, they would rather miss out on being blessed than to see their enemy being blessed as well. You know what I mean? It's just a thought, something for you to think about. Anyway, the other thing I want to bring up is, of course, the Super Bowl. This past Sunday, there was the Super Bowl. It was a big deal. Everybody's mad about the J-Lo and Shakira performance, but that's not really what I want to focus on. A couple of things I wanted to look at was this. Number one, Demi Lovato, she sang the national anthem. She sang it well, and the interesting thing is people were started to talk about how they had found this snapshot of this post that she had put, I think it was Facebook or some other social media, but they found a snapshot of where Demi had posted online years ago that one day she wanted to sing the national anthem. And after all the things that she had went through with substance abuse and just all these things, and then having to overcome her addiction and this and that to finally get back in the spotlight and be healthy and be performing again. And then as soon as she hits the spotlight again, here she is singing the national anthem at the Super Bowl and singing it well. That says something. Her dream came true. It took a while, right? It wasn't immediately. And with things spiraling out of control in her life, it didn't seem like it would happen. But at a time people didn't expect it, it happened. Her dream came true. Also, you had the 49ers, San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And from what I've heard, which I'm not big on football, but from what I've heard, this is the first year or the first win in many, many, many years for the Chiefs, which means there were a lot of people that didn't think that would happen. But you got to know there were some people on that team that was their dream, and it came true. And it happened when people least expected it, because for a while they weren't winning the game, and then all of a sudden they made a comeback and they won. Then you have Katie Sowers, a female who had a dream since she was a kid to coach in the NFL. Not women's football, men's football. And a lot of people just didn't believe in that dream, didn't think she could do it, but she did it. Won a few women to do it, and the first and only woman to coach in a Super Bowl. Congratulations, her dream came true. So with that said, let me say this. So all that stuff's been happening in the past week. Something else that's happened in the past week is this. Somebody from my hometown, don't know who he is. I've heard his name quite a bit before, but I have no idea who he is. He got signed to the St. Louis Cardinals. It's not the guy I was telling you about at the beginning of the sermon, but somebody else. But he's going to get to do that, and it's his dream. Congratulations to him. And now, with that said, I'll say this and I'll wrap this up. Let me do this. Have a seat right here. So, a few days ago, I was hanging out with a friend. Went to her place, and she was there babysitting her nephew, a little kid. And her nephew, he's playing with his toys. Me and my friend are talking. And her nephew, he's playing with this lightsaber, this toy lightsaber. And he's got this tub. And he's doing like this with the lightsaber inside the tub, like he's mixing something. He was acting like he was stirring something up to bake it. And my friend is like, "What's in there?" And he's like, "Nothing." No, first he's like, I'm stirring it up. My friend said, "What's in there?" He said, "Nothing." First thing that came to my mind was, he's making something out of nothing. And I said, that's exactly what God does. He makes something out of nothing. So whoever this is for, God can make something out of nothing. He can make your wildest dreams come true. Heavenly Father, I pray that you would make the dreams of your people come true. Their childhood dreams, their wildest dreams, and their most impossible dreams. I pray that they come true. And I bless you, and I give you the praise, glory, and honor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.